How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. These are my 2022 interpretations. Now, one of the important aspects that I would like to discuss before we get into 9 key areas that I pulled from the book that we'll find to be very helpful and relatable to today's conversation is the idea of emotional intelligence. Some of you might be familiar with the works of Daniel Goleman. I recommend reading his books on the topic of emotional intelligence, which is the ability to recognize, understand, and work with emotions in ourselves and others. We want to understand that most of communication, the influential aspects when it comes to communication, are non-verbal, which includes the emotional relatability with ourselves and another person. A person can feel if they like you and trust you. One of the important aspects when it comes to influence, communication, sales, and also personal relationships. People like to deal with who they like and trust, and that is felt at an emotional level. 4 important components that he brings up in his work is self-awareness, understanding the emotions as they arise within yourself when you are interacting with other people. Understand what they mean to you. What are they revealing? And in relation, we have social awareness, empathy, understanding the emotions of another person. Understand what they are communicating based on how you feel when you are communicating with them. Developing a deeper degree of presence in interactions. And a book that I recommend reading is The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox-Cabane, in which she summarizes the important aspects of charisma, which is power, and by power we're referring to direction, moving in a direction, presence, deep presence in the conversation, keeping your attention on the conversation, and feeling the conversation at an emotional level, which ties into warmth, relatability, understanding, empathy. Number 3, self-management, seeing beyond perceived setbacks. As we've been discussing, we want to see perceived obstacles as opportunities so that we can build relationships, so we can establish a deeper connection, presence and warmth, so that we can move towards a mutually beneficial direction. Number 4, relationship management, which includes things like visionary leadership, inspiring groups and individuals. Now, one of the things that I've learned on this journey as a result of being around inspirational leaders who are effective leaders, who have the ability to lead organizations, teams, initiatives, is they have this ability to relate their goals, their visions, their definite chief aims to the goals and visions and definite chief aims of the other individuals and groups, vice versa. We see it in conversation. They tie it all together. They reconcile it. They create relatability, or we could say reveal the relatability. As a result, the groups and individuals genuinely want to work with them and contribute to their goals. And on the flip side, they genuinely want to contribute to the goals of the leader. We call this the spirit of harmony. Now let's tie this all together in 9 key sequential aspects that I pulled from the book. Number 1, he says, be genuinely interested. So in relation to what I just mentioned, when it comes to leadership, and this applies for leadership in groups, organizations, and also one-on-one relationships when it comes to business and personal life. Number one, we want to be genuinely interested in the other person. Now, we have goals, we have visions, we have definite chief aims. And what we want to do is we really want to understand people. And one of the best ways to understand people is to genuinely be interested in who they are, what their desires are, their visions, their goals, their life, etc. Because as he stated, to be interesting, we want to be interested in others. It mirrors, it reflects. To the degree that we are genuinely interested in another person, it reflects as the other person being genuinely interested in us. Now we have a mastermind. Now we have a harmonious connection. And from that connection, we can find relatability between our goals, our visions, our definite chief aims, and their goals, their visions, and their definite chief aims. Which relates to number 2. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Certainly when you start the conversation with a person, provided that you're the one that initiated the conversation, you say a few things to capture the attention and pique a little bit of interest. Then at a certain point, it's important to encourage others to communicate about themselves. This part is very important because when a person starts to communicate about themselves, they begin to like and trust you. They feel that someone is genuinely interested in what they have to say, their goals, their visions, their stories, etc. And then we move on to number 3. When the person shares about themselves, their points of view, how they believe reality to work, their goals, their visions, see things, genuinely, see things from the other person's point of view. Seek to understand. As Stephen R. Covey had mentioned in the 7 Habits, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Actually go into their reality. What I like to do is when I'm having a conversation with someone, I actually surrender my own point of view and travel right into their world. This allows me to integrate to a deeper degree 3 important aspects which Olivia Fox-Cabane describes are the key components when it comes to charisma, power, presence, and warmth. By being present to another person's point of view and actually empathetically understanding them, which is symbolic to warmth, we build that like and trust. As he says, people who can put themselves in the place of other people, who can understand the workings of their minds, need never worry about what the future has in store for them. Now, this has proven itself to be true in my personal life and my business and career life. Although I didn't work with this to the degree that I do now, in the beginning, I did feel that the information in this book, when I read it way back in the days, stimulated this idea, which I started to notice would practically play out in business deals. You go over to a prospect's office, and you would sit there and you would listen to their challenges, their frustrations, their pains, their desires, and you would just listen to understand them. And interestingly, something would click in my mind, and I would come up with a solution. I'd say, here's what we can do for you. If I'm understanding what you're saying, and I would re-articulate from my own perspective how I understand what they were communicating to me, and then would add, if this is true, then perhaps this solution is what you are looking for. And what I would notice is from being genuinely interested, listening to them, and remember, we get better at it by working with this information with practice, and understanding their point of view, they felt, I could feel it as well, that like and trust, and it helps us tie into the other component of charisma, power, direction. So once the presence and the warmth was established at an emotional level, they accepted the suggestion and moved forward with the deal. And now an important component to that is number 4, release from condemnation. For whatever the reason may be, if a person condemns themselves and others, and specifically we're talking about building relationships and influence here, when it comes to identifying with this condemnation programming, and we seem to condemn others both verbally and non-verbally in our communication, this seems to throttle the fidelity of the connection, the conversation. So he says, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. So this is interesting, which I find to be the theme of the book. Understanding. So he says, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Go deeper into understanding if there was a reactive urge to condemn. He says, let's try to figure out why they do what they do. It breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. Release from condemnation. Now, we get better at doing these things with practice, which is why I recommend experiential learning, applying this information. Applying this in your personal life, business life, career life. Look for opportunities where you can take this information and apply it so you can understand this at an experiential level. Because communication is something that we continuously get better at with practice. I've been studying communication for many years, and I find that each day, through the various conversations that I have, in a wide array of contexts, I'm continuously improving. And as I continue to improve, what is being discussed in this video, what is being discussed in these books, make even more sense at an experiential, emotional level. Number 5, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. And so he says, everybody in this world is seeking happiness. Happiness depends on inner conditions. I believe one of the greatest things that we could do in the lives of others is to inspire them to follow their heart and intuition and do what they truly want to do, what they truly love. As we apply this information, we'll notice that we automatically seem to inspire people without even saying anything. People can feel when they are in the presence of an individual who lives the philosophy, who follows their heart and intuition and lives how they truly desire to live. And what we find with individuals like this, certainly I've experienced this with all those that I have met that I would consider to be inspirational leaders, is they automatically respond to whatever it is we're communicating automatically, authentically, by praising us on the areas in which we performed at a higher level. Now, this is related to the video that I released on Sunday, which I'll put a link in the description to it, in which we talked about applying the seemingly esoteric mind stuff over to performing arts, an athlete, or being a musician, which to me is a form of communication when it comes to influence. Although expressed through a musical instrument or through theater or dance, the subcommunication and the emotional components speak volumes. And so there's a part in there where I say that after the performance, what you want to do is you want to look over your performance and further encourage, recognize. That means remind yourself of the improvements of that performance. Now, when we operate from this paradigm, we see the value of this and we automatically do this with others. Thus, I want to encourage this more so, Because as you do this, you'll notice that people will start to feel a deeper degree of like and trust towards you because they know that you are genuinely interested in helping them achieve their goals, their visions, and their definite chief aims. And what you'll notice is that they will also be in harmony and in contribution with your goals, your visions, and your definite chief aims. Number 6, if you are wrong, admit it quickly and empathetically. This is one of the important components of being a leader, and something that I found to be very valuable on the entrepreneurial journey. Because we're essentially building our vision by staying true to our vision in our imagination while dealing with the day-to-day life in which we may not know how many of the components will work on the journey to creating success. Maybe as we implement the product or service for our client, there happens to be some errors or bugs. Those in the tech space will know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. I remember when I had built this point-of-sale system for clients as part of my IT business, and I took some open source software and different technologies and rolled it out. New Year's Day of, I believe, 2011, I received a phone call from a client. First thing in the morning, people were out for breakfast in the morning, and they were one of the restaurants that were open up early, but the point-of-sale system started malfunctioning. And they seemed very stressed out and overwhelmed on the call. And it wasn't a call that I wanted to receive early in the morning, New Year's Day. So I remember saying to him, I'm sorry, and I'll be over there and we'll resolve it. And I went over there, we resolved the issue, everything was working. And this is someone that's influential in the community. He knows a lot of other business owners, and he owns a few businesses himself. And after resolving the issue, he comes up to me and says, you know, you're a great guy. I really appreciate you. And him and I actually ended up becoming close friends. And we started hanging out. He started to invite me to dinner with his wife and his family. And he introduced me to many businesses. So we can see the benefit then from admitting when we are wrong and quickly and empathetically resolving it, both at an empathetic level, a relationship level, as well as at a service level. Number 7, give honest and sincere appreciation. So as we go through the challenges with each other on the day-to-day journey to realizing our vision, in the business relationships, the personal relationships, others can benefit from receiving sincere appreciation for all that they do to contribute to our goals and our visions. And as mentioned, the premise of this book is really about to be interesting, be interested, be genuinely interested, genuinely care about people. And that is what's translating to harmonious friendships, relationships, and influence. And so now we've talked about the different ways, and we can get into more discussion in the upcoming videos on this topic if you'd like. When it comes to building that initial relationships and perhaps even going through some challenges together to rise into a deeper degree of harmony and relationship, it's these kinds of stories that facilitate deeper relationships, what we go through together and how we go about it together, which facilitates further and higher degrees of influence, which we'll connect to in number 8. Arouse in the other person an eager want. So when we've built a relationship with someone, we've understood them to a certain degree, understanding that this is an ongoing journey. They feel that they like us, they trust us, we don't condemn, we don't judge, we bring clarity in the relationship. Thus, it's easier to arrive to decisions. We're not pretending to win them over, but we're being authentic and genuine, being who we really are, thus facilitating the two important aspects of charisma, deep presence and warmth. This has facilitated a deeper degree of trust, and then people reciprocate that by keeping into consideration our suggestions. So number 8, arouse in the other person an eager want. And thus these things that we talked about stimulate a conclusion in the mind and in the heart of the other person. They say, what else does this person have that can help me? I trust this person. I like this person. I know that this person is genuinely interested in my success, my well-being. And I also find myself genuinely interested in their success. And so now they want to know more about you. They want to do the things that you want to do because they see it as mutually beneficial. And what you'll find then is it's easier to ask for the commitment or the sale or doing the deal or divvying up the project or whatever it may be. Number 9, relate happiness to what you suggest. So as he says here, everyone is seeking happiness in some shape or form, whatever it means to them. Happiness depends on inner conditions, by how they feel around you, and actually even through conversation, stimulating their wants, their needs, their desires, their goals, their visions, their definite chief aims. We now are clear on what they want. And through our communication, when we're leading, we're giving direction, we're facilitating a commitment. If there was any kind of uncertainty, we can help them relate over to their goals, their visions. For example, one of the things that I do every now and then is I work with organization sales teams. And the questions that I like to ask in the beginning, which is related to what we're talking about here, is how much do they want to earn? What are their goals, their visions? And it's a very flow-based conversation. It doesn't feel like an interrogation. It's very flow-based. You get better at with practice as you work with this information to find your own way of facilitating these responses in another person. And then I note these things. So if a person says, I want to be more self-confident in my personal relationships, and they're working in a sales organization, and the suggestion was to do 10 prospecting calls a day, and let's say they were working from home, and they were procrastinating it or whatever, I would say something like, do you see how making these 10 sales calls a day, actually committing to doing something, and actually seeing yourself actually do it day after day increases authentically your self-confidence? And how does that translate over to confidence when it comes to your personal life? Because that's what they're looking to also experience as a result of tying in your vision to their vision, vice versa. And what we notice is they actually end up doing it because we're relating happiness to what we suggest. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion, including all these 9 key aspects from this book to further integrate. We can say, I realize that my genuine interest in another person reflects as their genuine interest to me. This facilitates the revelation of me actually being a good listener, as I notice that others listen to me, based on understanding their points of view as they understand mine. As a result, I find it easier to let go of thinking patterns in regards to condemnation, which facilitates a deeper degree of power, presence, and warmth. As I embody this state, I find myself automatically praising others on their improvement and expressing a sincere appreciation. Together, we're able to course correct and achieve our goals, visions, and definite chief aim. Through these experiences that we have with each other, we establish a deeper degree of like and trust. And this expresses itself as others eagerly wanting to commit to and contribute to my definite chief aim, as I am eagerly committed to their definite chief aim. And as a result, we find automatic relatability, understanding the suggestions from each other, and seeing them as in harmony and in contribution to our goals, our visions, and the great work. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.